Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a beautiful autumn evening, to the sounds of my puppy Angus squeaking away on his duck. And welcome to Looking Deeper. Hey, Sandy Herrick.
Hey, Dana, King Francisco.
Holy smokes, it's been forever.
It's been forever. Summer is over. Fall is here. Merry Christmas.
You'll
It's a
be here
coming.
soon.
I will. I will. We need to discuss if we're going to do a gallery while I'm there.
I think we should, at the very least, do a class together.
Absolutely. Let's do something. My God, it's been back in the saddle we need to get.
Lady Hawk is saying, I was wondering if that was him. Yep, that was Angus. I've since taken the duck from him, and now he has quiet toys for the rest of the evening.
Okay. Well, if Lady Hawk is there, I think between the two of us, we need to extend a huge hug and a deep, deep, deep embrace. We are so sorry for the loss of your brother.
Oh, my gosh.
Tender doings and forever healings. I mean, really, so much has happened since we've been together on the night show. Audra lost her mom. We took time off. I want to just kind of take a breath and realize that what goes on, whether we're together or not, and it's huge. So to kind of go, oh my God, let's catch up. Let's catch up. How are you?
I'm well. I'm the mother of a puppy, and as you know, I swore I'd never have another puppy after the passing of Gabriel in February, but as spirit would have it, and as my love of animals would have it, here I am with a 4-month-old English Springer Spaniel named Angus Michael. So that's new. How are you?
Oh, God. Well, at the moment, I'm tucked in. I threw out my back, and I don't know how. It could have been lugging luggage through airports and sleeping strange beds. I was down in Mexico City last week. I'm only home a couple of days. Seems like it's been forever already. And the other day, it's like I thought I broke a rib, and so went to the chiropractor. And then today, it was like, oh, my God. And then Bobby and I drove by a store in town, and it said, final sales of a furniture. We went in, let's go look. Well, I walked out with the sofa and a chair.
Oh, my gosh. How fun.
It's going to be more formal than the stuff that we got. A little bit more formal, but the color's perfect. It's going to and you know, when it's time to change the energy, it just all of a sudden, there it changed.
Absolutely.
There it is. It's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had mushy, soft sofas, and now this is a bit more formal. But I don't know. I hope I like it when I bring it home. It'll find its way. It'll find its way.
Do you find when things start to change, a little chink here, a little chink there, that sometimes it's just the foreshadowing of complete and utter changes?
Absolutely, Dan. And it started in the spring when I sanded the deck out in the back. And it was, it's like the shedding of a skin. Something in the feng shui, something in what is old. And, you know, this summer I cleaned out the house. So, you know, all the sheets and the towels, because it's been so filled the past few years with fighting for Bobby's life and the process of what it takes to hold space for all that medication, all that ether, all that air, all that psyche. And all of a sudden it was just time to, you know, Bobby's on the other side of his life. He's not fighting for it anymore. He's developing it. And there goes the shivers up my spine. I'm glad I felt that when I said that. And so it's like something needs to shift. And it's not a decision I made. It's a discovery I'm having. So it's like you said, all of a sudden there's like, well, the deck got done. And then, okay, now the sheets are gone and the towels are gone and the front deck got done. And now the furniture is changing and now the backyard's going to change. everything. Well, it happened to you when you started to design the, Enchanted Forest, and I can hardly believe I'm coming to see an exquisite park. It's no longer a piece of land.
It is. It's just beautiful out here. It's very much transformed. Um, so I thought, tonight might be kind of fun to talk about since we are in the season of Libra. Today is my grandson Easton's 4th birthday, and he's a little Libran who likes everything harmonized and balanced. Before we head right on into the realm of Scorpio, the realm of spirit, talking about changes. Yeah, there's so many changes that everyone is undergoing, experiencing, journeying through. Call it what you will. In the changes that you've experienced in your life, how heavily do you rely on conversation with spirit to get you through?
Oh my God, I lean hard. And this is a gesture I want to say to everybody that kind of has its own expression, from falling on my knees to standing up and screaming at the universe to, covering my face in tears and praying and bartering and begging to, again, throwing water into the wind, say, take that. And so when I lean into spirit, it depends on what it is that I'm going through or what I need or want or hope from spirit, which is the challenge to endure and get through to the other side. Oh, there you go. There you go, everybody. I'm back. Here comes my squeaky toy right now, chasing the cat, the big dog. And so I pray, I barter, I discuss, I step back, I lean in. I think there's also the wisdom of get out of the way so the tide can flow and you don't get caught in it, but you kind of see what it's taking and wait for the results. Or you get in and swim up tide and say, I'm going to keep this or take that. There's so many things depending on the uniqueness of the situation. And I'm impressed with where I decide to fight. And I'm also equally as impressed of where I say it's time to let go or hold on until something truly presents itself so that a decision or a reality checks in. What about you?
Well, Kelly Spencer, that is like perfect timing. I was just literally thinking to myself, where is Kelly Spencer?
Hey, Kelly.
And she popped right into the chat room.
Perfect.
Hey, Priestess Laura and Cindy, it's so good to have you here. And Tara, Lady Hawk, Katie Battle, Lily.
Hi, everybody. Oh, my goodness, it's a full house.
Lady Hawk. It is. It's wonderful. Well, I rely on spirit all the time. Period. That's just how it goes. And, oh, hold on just a minute. Let me see what he's eating now. Oh, okay. It's his monkey. This past week, we have an annual trip. That would be me and Todd and the Spencers, have an annual trip to Lake Superior. In the furthermost reaches of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is where my adoptive parents were born and raised, and that's where I used to go to see Grandma and Grandpa as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have a substantially larger dog than Gabriel, so we needed a substantially larger camper. We did that, and thank you so much, Lily, for helping to empty out the old camper for the switch up while she was here.
Yeah.
So there we were, going over the Mackinac Bridge, the Mighty Mac, in my GMC Yukon. I called her the Thunder Horse. And
Nice.
Todd was on the phone with the owner of the company that he works for. So changes going on there as we're going over the bridge. We got to the other side of the bridge and we were heading toward Newberry, Michigan. That's not normally the way we take, but there was a detour. Newberry is where my folks grew up and where I went to visit Grandma and Grandpa. My godmother still lives there, as do my cousins. Over the bridge we went, and the Yukon decided it was just going to give up the ghost. So we let her go for as long as she could go, and we landed about 30 miles from Newberry, from the dealership that my grandfather bought all of his cars from, his Chevys from.
That's wild.
Right. So we said to Kevin and Todd, go to Newberry. And I said to Todd, go buy that beautiful red pickup truck, that Chevy pickup truck. He laughed. And
did you see it, or was it in the parking lot and you saw it?
He saw a photo of it. He went to look to see if they had anything, because we had to have the Yukon towed and we had to have the camper towed.
Oh, my.
And we were still 7 hours from our destination.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So Kelly and I sat in the ditch, literally, with the dog and a cat in the car, waiting for the tow truck driver, who, as it turns out, knows my cousins.
Good Lord.
Yeah, my tribally enrolled cousins. Oh, yeah, I know those kids. I know those guys. We ended up at Newberry, where Grandpa bought all of his Chevys. Todd bought the Chevy that was there, the red truck. And it brought me home to a place I haven't visited in a very long time. And to think that I would have a Chevy Silverado cherry red with Newberry Motors sticker on the back, if you would have told me that, right? And so there we were reminiscing with the owner of the dealership about who, my grandpa and my dad and yada, 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 blah, blah. And the entire time, Todd and I looked at each other, Kelly and I looked at each other and said, you can't make this up, but you have to understand that clearly Spirit, ditch sitting, yeah. Spirit had something in mind, and I knew that it was my grandfather. And I knew it was my dad that got us there. And literally within a couple of days, we owned that new Chevy Silverado. And on the way back, for me, it's really important to show gratitude when Spirit works and helps me through. So on the way back from a week in probably my favorite place on planet Earth, we stopped in Newberry and we went to the American Legion Hall and made a donation in the Sarge's name. And we drove by Grandma and Grandpa's house and my godmother's house and by my grandpa's tavern. And sometimes participating in change means that we are sometimes forced to revisit the past.
Yes.
Let's talk about that, change and looking at the past in order to move forward.
Well, how did you feel that Spirit said over here, little girl?
Well, 30 miles from Newberry, that would be the only car dealership. There are very few of them in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. My grandpa only bought Chevys from the Knauf family, and it was a joke because my dad only bought Fords from the Rawholly family. And so when we would go to visit Grandpa, I was his favorite grandchild. Mm-hmm. When he passed, it was my photo on his deathbed side table. He would have a big sign, Chevys only. Fords go park in the, wherever, in the alley.
Right.
And so I knew, and the other thing is I am a believer in signs. So when we got there, Kelly found a dime in the parking lot of the Newberry Motors. That's how my dad communicates with me. But something inside me told me that I needed to go back there and revisit parts of my childhood that were good so that I could bring that goodness forward.
So you're talking about something that you went on a traditional trip.
Yeah.
Your car said, we're going to stop here.
Yep.
And then you pick up a new car. But in doing this, you also go back and visit the history of the beginning of your life.
Yes.
So what is it that Spirit said, come back and reclaim? What kind of soul retrieval?
Joy.
And did you know Kelly in that neighborhood, or was that later?
Oh, no, I didn't know Kelly until Kelly's from Minnesota. So that was, well, I would go to visit my grandpa and grandma at the time that I first met Kelly.
Okay.
But it was to revisit a joyful part of my childhood that had recently, in the last 10 years, been usurped by some really ugly times.
Well, this is a beautiful opportunity for us to take a look at how does one recover their soul.
Yes.
From the toxins, the poisons, the psyche that's infected with the hardship of growing up, or the reality that paradise doesn't exist, as, we realize our parents are human, or the humanness of all those around us affect us with their trauma, and then it mingles with ours. So I've got goosebumps saying this, and I'm going to dedicate this show to this process that you're talking about, because the beauty of you working with your ancestors, you coming to incredible soft realities because of such fierce dynamics over the past few weeks, past few months, where you just literally said, enough. Enough.
Yes.
And whenever we say enough, because I've said it in my life too, to the disease, to the dying, to enough. And it is that place where you say we always talk to Spirit, because we're talking to the Spirit that is invading the very spirit of our own goodness.
Yes.
That devours from us the spirit of, I think, the gentleness of the purity of anybody that is born, that starts out, this is my life and I'm here, yay. What was that? Who are you? What are you saying to me? What where the influences start to take from us or detain us from our own joy.
Yes. Yeah, I felt as though I was doing some inner child work.
Absolutely.
In, reminding my young self of the goodness of going to get ice cream with Grandpa, of playing pool at my other grandpa's tavern. And in just a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, I am making almost a 2-week journey by myself in my new red Silverado down to South Georgia to meet the only person that I am aware of, who knew my biological mother. And that would be my cousin Joshua. I've never met him. And from all accounts, he spent many, many, many summers growing up with my mother. And he's the only person alive who can tell me about my mother.
Wow.
And a family reunion in Hawkinsville with the King side, which is, is its own wonderful thing. So
right.
In preparation for meeting my mother through the voice of my cousin from Alabama.
So we're going around a really big cycle that's kind of backtracking. And I know when I do a lot of healings or recovery, and instead of going clockwise energetically, all of a sudden we go counterclockwise.
Yeah.
To go back to, that gave me the shivers just even doing it. I was activating it with my hand. Going back to the realms where life was interrupted, paused, affected profoundly on a subconscious level, and you may not have remembered it in the moment, but you have to retrieve it.
Yes.
And when we retrieve memories, I want everybody to know they are there in their purity waiting for us. They don't want to deceive us. They do want us to come back and know that we're remembered. We're not just remembering that moment. That moment remembers us. That makes me want to cry to even say that.
Yes.
And it calls us back because it is familiar with the place that we're yearning to experience in ourselves and have validated as real.
Yes.
And even be surprised that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of pauses my breath. So, and you said something very charming, and I know that there's this place inside me that I was adamant the last time I was there, adamant that I take everybody for ice cream.
Yes, and I have a great photo of that. You did take everybody for ice cream.
Because I wanted to be the first person to initiate an ice cream cone for Easter.
Exactly. Even while he was still in utero, yeah.
I was going to get that kid first ice cream cone. And, so it's interesting how the story of ice cream cones with your grandfather
mm-hmm.
is a nostalgia of love.
Yes. Yes.
Way beyond his lifetime.
Yes.
But deeply held in yours as if there's the shivers. What did you experience? Did you get ice cream? What happened?
Oh no, I went and had a Two-Hearted beer because Grandpa fished on the Two-Hearted River up in the UP. And so here in Michigan, and it's now in other places, there are Two-Hearted beers. It's an IPA beer. So we went to Charlie's, where I used to play pool with my cousins, and Todd and I had a Two-Hearted to thank Grandpa for getting us safely, because to be perfectly honest, Kelly and I were sitting in a ditch along US 123, and when both the tow trucks were there for the camper, it's a 34-foot camper, so it's a big one, and that big old Yukon, we almost had a head-on collision right there. So it was no small task that we were kept safe and the animals were kept safe.
Where did the collision come out of?
Huh?
Where did the near collision come out of?
Traffic coming both ways with Yoopers who decided that they were a little too impatient to hold up for the tow trucks as they were hooking up.
Bastards.
Yeah. So, whenever big changes happen for me, I always look to see, always look to see what's going on. All of a sudden I have Marvin Gaye, right, playing in my head, what's going on.
Right.
What's happening and why is it happening? And just prior to this podcast, I was teaching a class and we were focusing on the teachings of the Phoenix. The Phoenix is as the morning sun, the afternoon sun, and the evening sun. Because our life is like that, the deaths without dying.
Absolutely.
And when we're having those deaths without dying, because we all do it, who do you run to? Who do you go to? Who do you listen to? And for me, it's spirit. It's my ancestors. It's the Holy Mother. It's the angels. I rely on them.
Yeah. And when we rely on them, because I do too, there's that place of knowing what I rely on is that external family of the unseen or the ones in the mist.
Yes.
The ones that are in the faith. And, I want to challenge that by saying faith is kind of a word that says, well, it's something you believe in. But for me, it's something I know in.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah, I don't believe they're there. I know they're there.
Exactly. Yes.
So I really want to be able to up the ante for everyone that is challenged by faith or wondering what their faith is to know that there's something there and it's your opportunity to explore what it is, because there's a constant with us.
Yes.
With the energetic field. It's not there because we believe in it or we're going to go find it. It's there. We have to discover its presence.
And
It
its
doesn't
purpose,
need us
yes.
to know it's there. It's not so vain that it needs us to know. I think that's what's so exquisite about spirit. It really doesn't say, I'm not going to work with you unless you believe me.
Right.
It's going to
Exactly.
be with us no matter what.
Yes.
And it's working with us even if we don't know it's it.
Yes.
It doesn't need us to go, do you know my name? I'm not going to do it for you unless you know my name. Are you going to pay me? I'm not going to do it unless you're going to pay me. It's just with you.
Yes.
And we discover its presence from that awe. I think the awareness of like, oh my God, what was that? Or where's the comfort come from? Or where's the strength come from? Where's the dying come from? It comes from the reality of their existence.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. So who walked into that adventure? Who walked through that adventure and who's walked out of that adventure, Dana?
Cindy is saying, Youper made me laugh. I had forgotten the term as a former Michigander. Yep, if you're from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you're known as a Youper. And anyone from this side of the Mackinac Bridge is known as a troll, because trolls live under the bridge.
Oh, that's just
Yeah. Well, you know, what's fascinating, and everyone who's listening who's been on a healing journey understands this, the counterclockwise and the clockwise, is that I'm going to be meeting somebody who can tell me what my mother's voice sounded like, what her eyes looked like, what her hug felt like. And
are there any movies of her? Does anybody have any movies of her?
No, she's kind of like a ghost in the wind, except for my cousin Joshua. He is, in Joshua, if you are listening, I cannot wait to meet you. He is a bounty hunter in southern Alabama, bail bondsman. His dad was one of my mother's brothers. But the person who drove away from Newberry in that Newberry Motors Chevy, I believe is somebody who knows that whatever I learn or whatever I hear or whatever I experience, not only me as an adult woman, but the inner child who says, where did my mama go?
Right.
It's been reinforced that all along the way, in some way, shape, or form, I've been held by Newberry, Michigan. And the reason that I say that is because the first people who adopted me, or bought me, I should say, the Sarge always told me that they were told when they purchased me that every day I would walk up to my then adopted mother and I would wait to be hit. There wasn't a reason for me to be hit, but it was part of my daily protocol that I would literally walk up to this woman as a toddler and wait to be beaten. And she would beat me daily. And it was her husband who said, I didn't get this child for us so that you could just beat her every day. And
Do you remember the beatings, Dana?
I've had dreams about the beatings in the past 3 months or so. I remember the Sarge telling me that when they first brought me home, that there were certain times I would walk up and I would stand waiting to be beaten. He said, you were like a puppy dog waiting to be beaten with a rolled up newspaper. That's how he would put it. But I feel as though that child now understands the depth of the love that was experienced in the UP of Michigan, in Newberry, by my grandpa, who was 6'5", and he was an ornery cuss. He was the deputy sheriff. He was an ornery cuss to everybody but me. And so I feel as though that part of me can now go to southern Georgia and visit with my cousin from southern Alabama and hear about my mother and have an understanding that there was love in between. Does that make sense, Sandy?
Oh, good God, yes. I mean, let's pause here because this is profound. When you think of how long you've lived with having to tolerate wondering why you weren't lovable.
Right.
Or to even have to decipher what love was being explained to you as, and you had to comprehend it in a way that is like the question mark, is this love?
Mm-hmm.
And when one becomes accustomed to abuse, in a description of that is how one is supposed to tolerate love, or it's part of love, or, well, at least you're loved, so the good goes with the bad, but,
right.
At least you're loved.
Yeah.
We're talking about abuse on a cellular level that is so ingested on such a deep psychological level. It confuses us with reality and self-worth and pain and how to endure our life.
Yes.
This is no small little cruise down the road just to get yourself a red truck.
No, and and I'll just be really honest, because the people that are in the chat room and the people that listen to the show, you and I have been doing this since 2008.
Mm-hmm.
It's 15 years we've been doing this show by a variety of names.
Yes, we have. That's shocking, but true.
Yeah. So I have somebody working with me through this process because I understand it's nothing to be toyed with psychologically or any of it.
This is hard work.
It's very hard work. And I had a dream recently that involved my first adoptive mother and the horror of the abuse. And I woke up from that dream knowing, okay, I just had a recollection, and then I met with my counselor. And that night, dummy me, I mean, it was not smart of me to watch the Republican, and here it is again tonight, debate. I am not somebody who dances well in chaos. For obvious reasons. Chaos does not appeal to me. I will not entertain it for very long. And partially into that absolute shit show of chaos of that debate, I was sitting there watching this with my mouth agape. And the next thing I knew, my husband was pulling at my toes and saying, Dana, do you hear me? Are you okay? And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? And he said, I've been trying to get your attention for the past minute and a half. Where did you go? I said, oh my God, did I have a Mitch McConnell moment? I was kind of making fun of it. And he did not think it was funny. And he said, yes, you did. Where did you go?
Right.
And I said, into the chaos, and into safety from chaos. And
so totally disassociate.
Yeah. So, yes.
I mean, that is a phenomena that is necessary when a child knows how to deal with trauma.
Yes.
You disappear.
Yes.
You separate from your body so you don't feel what it is that's about to be brutalized upon you.
Yes. So for me, as an infant and a toddler, spirit was safe for me. And so spirit is very familiar to me. It's very loving to me. It is safe for me. And it is my familiar. Far, and you've known me long enough, Sandy, to know that I am far more comfortable in the presence of spirit than I am with people.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Well, ditto, 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 ditto. For me, the amount of chaos and drama and trauma in my childhood from, the age of from 3 on up, um, my refuge was in bed. My refuge was to go to bed, say my prayers, and to be with whatever the phenomena was, which was certainly not a word a child would have. But as a Catholic child, this is where the angels were. This is where the saints were. This is where God was. This is where you kneel at your bedside with your hands folded, your eyes closed tight, and you say your prayer and you ask for protection for everybody. And you list the names. And enlisting the names means I'm talking to something that I am absolutely certain is listening to me and doing my bidding. That there is the goodness of someone wanting to listen to what you need to say and then giving you the request of, yes, I will keep them safe or I will protect you. And so I would make certain that there would be, because I was brought up with night terror beyond belief. I mean, still lurks all through me. And that's established way young when things were so volatile in my home that I wouldn't go to sleep just randomly. I didn't close my eyes and take a deep breath and go to sleep. I was on duty. I, as a child, had the parameters checked in my psyche. If somebody's coming up the stairs, how do you get out of the house? If somebody, where's the bat? Where's the hairbrush? How do I defend my brothers and sisters? And so it's also the strategy of knowing that I'm talking to something that's going to help me get through it.
Yes.
It's not just all me. See, that makes me want to cry. That brings that tender emotion and the shivers from the vagus nerve. This is a phenomena that we learn and develop because the presence of something, which is the psyche of the violence of our parents, their anger, their history, whatever they're going through that's not making sense, that we don't necessarily understand as children what's happening, but we know there's a disturbance in the force. We know it.
Yes.
We know, you talk about Easton knowing and needing balance. Well, as a Scorpio child, there was no balance in our family. There was no balance. There were moments of goodness, just like with you and your grandpa. There were holidays. There were good moments. But that disturbance would come, and it didn't destroy the feeling of goodness. It complicated to understand why goodness couldn't last, or why we had to accept all the chaos because, at least there's goodness. And there's that place of, as a child for me, where my heart never gave up, ever, 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 that goodness wasn't going to win out. To this day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tenderness inside me that I can say to you. You can hear my voice change. My body's changing. There's a suppleness. I have experienced that it works out.
Yes.
No matter what hell we are in, the gratitude I have for my ancestral, spiritual, undeniable, incredibly devoted team, family, loved ones that are not my physical body family, but them, always gets me through.
Yes.
And for you, I know it's similar, that place in me. It gives me the strength to have the confidence in counseling others to bring the quality of that goodness, the quality of that knowing to anyone, and to most of you out there that are listening to us that have worked with you or I, that the knowledge that we'll get to the other side of this is an honest experience that is now, it has track record.
Yes.
And that I have, without any doubt in my experience of my whole life, that I have the strength, the courage, the competence, the ability, and the inner wisdom, even as a child, that is way beyond my years, that the might stay connected is much more important than to surrender and become invisible.
Yes.
No matter how deep the pain, that there's something there.
Yes.
And I feel that that red truck is now a manifestation of something that is the heart of your grandfather. You don't get a bigger, beating, protective Tonka boy.
I know. Kelly was taking photos with the Newberry Motors behind us. It was one of those moments where most people in the world have, or even in Michigan, have no idea about Newberry, except that it is one of the meccas of, if you can call that up there, in the Upper Peninsula. But it needed to be revisited and reframed.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. And that to me is the new phrase that I'm really endearing myself to, and feeling that there's a new vocabulary coming out that's beyond the new age jargon. And reframed is really one of those just beautiful phrases of, let's reframe this.
Yeah.
And, because it takes the picture that has the horror in it and it throws it out. It gives you a whole new frame. It gives you something else to put into that photographic memory of our subconscious, our unconscious, and the reality of what our skin will forever be honest about. And that would be the taste of that ice cream, the taste of the summer day, the heat, the touch of your grandfather, the smell of your grandfather, the sight of the cars, the phrase. I mean, you get to frame that now. And what does that frame do in contrast to the knowledge of your abuse that was consistent for way too long into your life?
Yeah.
And I guess I think I have a different question, and I want to pause it for a second, because where did you go when Todd asked where you went? Do you know?
When I look back at that moment, I was, call it zoned out, call it what you will, but I was definitely with spirit in a place of comfort. And it was a matter of, I grew up in a household, as you did, as many people did, of yelling and screaming and alcoholism and all of these sorts of things. And that's what that debate felt like to me, reminiscent. And so I went to a space of safety because the inner child was still out there saying, Dana, do you have me?
Right.
And on the heels of some other things from earlier in the summer, where I finally did say, I'm done. I'm done. And y'all, we know when we're done.
When we're done, it's not always loud.
It isn't, and it can be emotional. And Todd, God bless him, since my father died, since my dad died, he took me to Fort Gordon, Georgia, which is where my dad was stationed when he brought me home. And I grew up in, I recently said this to Todd, I grew up in a home that was smaller than the camper that we now have.
Yeah.
Literally, because I grew up, the first few years of my life after the Sarge adopted me, our home was a trailer on the Army base, and it was far smaller than the camper we currently have. And I don't have a problem with that because, from my memory, it was all good. But when I entered the American Legion in Newberry, which is just a cool place, and I walked up to the bartender, and the bartender, was cleaning glasses, and she said, "Hey, how can I help you?" And I looked at her, and those moments when you think you have your shit together?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. And she looked at me, and there were other veterans. You could tell they were from their age, Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
Sitting at the bar, and I said, "I'm here to make a donation on behalf of my dad. Because my dad's family has been here in this town since the early 1800s as lumberjacks and fur traders and tavern owners." And she looked at me. And I said, "I'm here on behalf of Master Sergeant Donald Kronk." And Sandy, I lost it.
Oh, sweetheart. Oh, dang it.
And Todd stood there as he has through this whole process that I've been going through for the past 8 years.
Right.
And as I did at the Apple Valley American Legion, Kelly and Kevin were there when, I was there. My dad helped to form that particular American Legion. I think that's all I can say about that. What I've noticed as I've gotten older as a quadruple Scorpio is that I've allowed myself the compassion or the permission to be outwardly emotional.
It's called mercy, Dana.
Yeah. Which, and for any of you that, have grown up from, childhood being physically abused or emotionally abused, you automatically have an armor that people will label in a variety of ways. Well, she's harsh, she's a bitch, she's not this, she's that. But that comes from a place. And with enough work, you understand that maybe you don't always need the armor, or it's okay to put it down sometimes.
Well, it gets reframed.
Yeah.
So I'm having a moment here with something that you just said, which I am going to quantify as a psychological water dropping on your psyche. And that is when you moved into your new house, the lily pad was out there.
Yes.
And for you to be a child that was brought up in a trailer, that lily pad, and God bless, because you gave it to Lily. It became a heartbeat. It became something other than a vacant tin can on a piece of property.
Oh, yeah.
That I am going to literally just open that can opener with a can opener, that your subconscious would have been activated right there.
Yes.
To start doing this work with a trailer kid and your trailer homes. And I remember so clearly before, just during COVID that, you can't sit still. You got to travel. You're going to need to travel. And that, something in your subconscious is so deeply surging and purging and preparing you to go and sit raw, real, and available for your emotions, quite frankly, Dana, with this relative who will speak of your mother and bring her love into your heart, and your heart will be available for it.
Yes. And the fact that he is a bail bondsman and a bounty hunter.
What have you been doing since you've been looking for your family?
Right.
You a bail bondsman and a bounty hunter looking for the runaways.
Exactly. Who also drives a Chevy Silverado, as it turns out.
What color?
Yeah, Kelly says it was perfectly timed. I felt like your grandfather was gifting the vehicle that would carry you to your birth family, giving you
Absolutely.
blessings and wishing you peace and love. Yes. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. Yeah.
Well, you're in utero, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's the heartbeat. There's the womb. There's the cocoon. There's the magic. And all. Let's go one step farther. There's your mother calling you home back inside of her.
Yes. Instead of just visiting her gravesite every year there in Alabama, I get to visit her life.
You get to be brought home to her womb.
Yeah.
You get to be placed on her heart. You get to hear of her breath.
Yeah.
And fuck all those people that said file closed, can't, don't do it, don't want to open, don't know. Your tenacity is only equaled by your mother's need to have you find her, Dana. That I am certain of.
Yes. Yes. And Cindy, you're welcome.
Yes, it wasn't just you on this side of the door going, I want in. It's her on that side of the door. Find me, come get me, break it down.
Yes. Cindy is saying, thank you for the most vulnerable share. It hits me in so many spots.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not to say that people who aren't adopted don't have those traumas. I mean, this is across the board. The work is continuous. And I do it for myself, but mostly, Sandy, I do it for Easton.
You betcha. This is the ancestral work that will change his children, his children, his children.
Yes. Yeah. Last week or the week before, I get there really, really early in the morning when Elise goes into the children's hospital. And he was waiting for me at the ripe old age of 4. And he said, Grandma, will you lay down with me so I can tell you about my dream I just had? I think it was a dream, Grandma, but I'm not sure. Can I tell you about it? And this morning when I got there, he was standing there. Grandma, it's my birthday. Will you come have a nap with me? I had a dream. Can I tell you about my dream? And so I say that for everyone who's listening, because every ounce of work that we do for ourselves, our ancestors, the ones that are our grandchildren, our children, those 7 generations behind us, Laura, you are correct. It changes, it heals the weave.
Yes, it does. It unbraids the braid.
Yes, it unbraids the braid.
It untangles the whole thing and allows the life to flow.
Yes. Yes.
I think we're at a point that way surpasses the new age. We're at an elevation of healing that has a certain quality, intelligence to it, that the past 50 years really had to navigate in the psyche to even trust that therapy has value, and that it's not just for you're crazy if you go talk to somebody, or why do we don't do that, we don't feel, we don't integrate, we do not observe. This is another level of the pulse of the very spirit that you're talking about, that is the embrace to us from the beyond that holds us so tight.
Yes.
That is asking us to come into the super place of our subconscious, our unconscious, and be aware of the fact we are not only what we have become out of our trauma or out of our forgetfulness or of what we had to remember wrong in order to have a new idea about what a good life is.
Yes. And Meg Anutto is in the chat room, and
hey, Meg.
Her son, who is just, oh my God, an astonishing soul. I mean, he's not my godson, but I kind of feel like he is my godson. Like Audra DeVries, her son Gavin, is my godson. I I know, I love that kid too. But this generation of young people, like Alex's age, Gavin's age, Elisa's age, man, they're changing shit.
Absolutely.
And the stronger that we can be
Yes.
as their parents, as their godparents, as their aunties, they're changing the world. They are rattling cages out in the healthcare systems and law and construction or what have you, man. They are rethinking this whole thing. They're redreaming it. They are redreaming it.
Life. Yes.
Yes.
And there's that place where the vibration of those that you're talking about have the necessity to do this because the world will not survive if they don't.
Exactly.
It's really that poignant. It's not a myth anymore. This is, they know that, okay, somebody's going to Mars, but that ain't where we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's where somebody really, 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 the destroyers of the earth are making plans on Mars. But the livers, the real, true, honest heartbeats of Earth are realizing, let's heal this so we do not miss out on having it.
Yes. Yes. I look at young people. Aw, thank you, Meg. He is such an amazing young man. I look at the young people who are willing to say out loud, here's who I am.
Right.
And it's not who the boomers are okay with necessarily. I'm on the tail end of boomers, by the way.
I'm downtown.
Yeah, you are a boomer. And not all boomers are okay because, man, it is rattling cages, and I love it.
Absolutely.
Alex is in healing. Elise is in healing. They look at people in hospitals and in the practices much differently than generations before. I look at, like Kelly's grandkids are out there being authentic.
Yeah.
Like, who were we pretending to be and for who? And a lot of it, and here I go, I mean, we were pretending to be that for religion.
Well, let's not forget that we were really controlled.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Manipulated.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
Yeah, And so there we go. We're back on track. And, when you talk about the debate being chaotic, all they are patriarchal mindsets screaming at, you're dumb, I'm powerful.
Right.
You're in, I know more. You don't know. And that's the fight in the house between my mother, my father, myself. And I was the one that literally finally would slam the fist on the table and enough.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah.
And when I was done, I mean, it gets scary because there is that place where it's the sonic bomb that goes out. It's like, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
And then there are the older people who hold like a generational thought that are, there's a reframing. I agree with you, Cindy. The reframing is like Kelly, I'm going to talk about your dad here for a moment. And Sandy, you've met Tom Holt.
I remember the day I said, Kelly, who's your daddy?
He's a handsome devil, that man. But my boys absolutely love him. Elise loves him. Who doesn't love Gigi Pa? And so I know that for some of the things that get talked about around him, he's like, kind of like, huh. And at the same time, you can see him processing new ideas. And for all the older folks that are out there listening, when you process older ideas from where you are as somebody who's 80, 90, however old you are, man, it's shifting things.
And there's the permission, again, to rethink. As a baby boomer, 1947, downtown Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
flower power, sexual revolution, women's. I mean, my generation literally brought something that initiated the whole next 50 years so that whatever is now really being thought about has permission to go, even as we call it, going deeper,
Yeah.
and a sanity to them that isn't just the fight to crack the egg. It's to really be aware of the fact that life is precious. It's not an opinion.
Yes.
And that is what the patriarchal society literally did to us. They had an opinion about life and insisted we only believe their form of it.
Yes. The other night, I was having a conversation until midnight with my son, Dane, about JFK. And Dane is a prolific reader about history. He loves history. And he's reading a book called JFK and the Unspeakable: Why He Died and Why It Matters by James W. Douglas. And so Dane and I, until midnight, were having this conversation about Vietnam, about my dad, the Sarge. I mean, my dad, the Sarge, worked for President Johnson and President Nixon. I mean, like right up close and personal, where he would take me to the White House to meet President Nixon until he went to Vietnam, where his job was to bring in spooks. Dane said, "What? I'm reading about spooks in this book, Mom." And I said, "That was your grandpa's job, was to bring in political assassins."
There you go. It's amazing that it takes 50 years for the truth to unravel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the people that were controlling the truth have died.
Yes.
And the people who feared the people who said, if you tell the truth, you're going to die.
Yes.
I mean, it's that place of knowing the courage to remember something and then the necessity to have the truth come out and reveal what is the lie, what is this deceit, what is the possibility of the truth.
Yes.
I am grateful because I was there for Kennedy's assassination, the day it happened. I was walking through the halls of high school and just heard it on the radio in my car, and walked through the hall, and I looked into the doorway of my art teacher, and I was crying. He goes, what's wrong with you? And I said, the president just got killed. And he went, oh, for God's sakes, Lincoln was killed a lot. And I said, no, President Kennedy just got killed. And he didn't want to believe me, and it came over the loudspeaker. And the shock of that it was reachable.
Yes.
That someone could reach the president and annihilate a nation.
Yes.
It wasn't, we thought we were safer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing that happened when you disappeared and Todd pulled your toes. Something so vile stopped what was supposed to be safe, that we didn't even have to consider was a possible danger.
Yeah.
And it shocks that sense of our core that we didn't even believe that evil, that vile, or that somebody could possibly want to do that to the safety of a world, of people. I mean, it's somebody's thinking against us rather than for us.
Mm-hmm. And we are living in a time where both personally and nationally, international, all things are being revealed. Because, when we're speaking metaphysics, in January of 2024, February is when Pisces says, see ya, it's been a nice ride, and we become fully ensconced in Aquarius.
Amen.
And it's been a long time coming because those ages take decades to fully ensconce themselves. And, the mother is now taking her place at the table.
And
And
it's not being a feminist.
no,
Being a conscious woman
yes,
who cares about life,
yes,
the child, the family, the hearth, and will no longer shut the fuck up.
that's right.
That's
There it is. And with that, we are past the top of the hour, Sandy. So we will be together Monday night for our monthly class. And then Sandy will be here in November.
She will.
Here at the School of Sacred Studies. So we will put something together with all of that. But thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you for the way that you're doing your own work out there, because it does make a difference, doesn't it, Sandy?
Well, it's what's available to make your life the best it can be right now, rather than feel the tragedy that you were alive while you were living.
Right. Exactly. Beautifully put. With that, everyone, have a beautiful evening. Sandy, have a great night.
You too. Thanks for the conversation, Dana. Thank you, everybody. Sweet dreams.